Okay, welcome to Ashtanga Vinyasa Flow Yoga. This is a modified Series 1, so there's lots of opportunities to make this as gentle or as strenuous as you'd like. We began the practice in a pose called Samastitihi. It's mountain pose at the top of our mat. And it's always good to do some warm-ups before we start the class. We begin with sun salutations. So from the top of the mat in Samastitihi, or mountain pose, inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, and then step back to plank. And flow back into extended child's pose as you exhale. Take an extra breath down here in child's pose. Inhale up to hands and knees, tuck the toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. And we'll take 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Inhale as you step forward to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, Samastitihi. And we'll do 3 more sun salutations, and we'll make the vinyasa flow increasingly difficult. So stop where you feel comfortable and stay with that flow. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Here comes our easy vinyasa. Step back to plank. Flow back to child as you exhale. Inhale to hands and knees, tucking the toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. And 3 breaths. There's 1. 2, and 3. Step forward as you inhale to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, Samastitihi. And now with a slightly more challenging vinyasa flow, knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Step back to plank and lower the knees, chest and chin as you exhale, coming down to the mat. Inhale, rising up, cobra, maybe up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And take 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Inhale as you step forward to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, Samastitihi. And now, with a more challenging vinyasa flow, chaturanga up dog, and you can do one of the easier versions if that's your preference. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold.
Inhale, half lift. Exhale, step back to plank and descend to chaturanga or another version. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. So you can walk, step, or hop forward, inhaling to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, upward salute. Exhale, Samastitihi. Now we'll move to Sun Salutation B, flowing with the breath. So this can be challenging, long exhalations and long inhalations. Inhale to chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. As you exhale, step back and descend to your version of the Vinyasa Flow. And then rising up as you inhale, and we'll all exhale into downward facing dog. And on the next inhalation, step forward with the right foot, lower that back heel, inhale up to warrior 1. And immediately we'll exhale down to a high lunge, stepping back to plank, descending in the Vinyasa Flow of your choice. Inhale. Rising up, cobra, up dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And as we inhale, we step forward with the left foot. Lower that back heel, rising up to warrior 1. Exhale, hands down to the mat, plank, and descend through a Vinyasa Flow. Inhale, rising up. Exhale, downward facing dog, and we'll take 3 breaths. One, 2, and 3. Feet come forward between the hands as you inhale to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to chair pose. Exhale, rise up and bring the hands down to Samastiti. And one more time, Sun Salutation B. Inhale to chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to a half lift. Exhale, step or jump back to plank. And descend down as you exhale. Inhale. Upward facing dog or rising up. Exhale. All flowing back to downward facing dog and then as we inhale, we'll step forward with the right foot, lower that back heel, lift up to warrior 1, exhale, hands down by the foot, slide that foot back, choose your Vinyasa Flow, exhale as you descend, inhale as you rise up, exhale, downward facing dog. And as we inhale, we'll step forward with the left foot, lowering the back heel, rising up, warrior 1. Exhale, it's a long exhalation, hands down, plank, Vinyasa Flow, descending as you exhale, inhale, rising up, exhale, downward facing dog. And now we'll take those 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. As you inhale, bring the feet forward between the hands. Half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale to chair. Exhale, rise up and come to Samastiti. Find your deep, slow breath. We'll bring our hands to our hips. We're just going to hop our feet shoulder width apart. That's not very far. It's a little hop. Inhale, lift the chest, shoulders back, elbows back. Exhale, forward fold. Bring the hands down to the mat block or grab your big toes. We'll all inhale to a half lift. Exhale, forward fold for 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Inhale to a half lift. Exhale, place your hands under your feet or in some similar position that works for you. Exhale, and 3 more breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, forward fold. And inhale, rise up, upward salute. Bring the hands down to the hips. And we'll hop our feet back together and come to Samastiti. Now we'll move for triangle pose. We're going to step back with the right foot to the back of the mat to a 5-pointed star. And then point those toes, front foot to the back of the mat. Inhale here. As we reach forward, exhale into triangle pose. You can use a block for your hand. And take 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Rising up to that 5-pointed star, reposition your feet. Get them just right for triangle pose, facing the front of the mat. Reach forward and exhale into triangle pose and take 3 more breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Coming up to the 5-pointed star, we're going to face the back of the mat. Widen and shorten your stance. We're moving to revolve triangle pose when the feet are just right. We're going to windmill the hand down to that block or the mat into revolve triangle and hold it for 3 breaths. There's 1, 2, 3, and 3. Soften that or bend that front knee. Come on up to the 5-pointed star. Reposition your feet. Remember, it's a wider and shorter stance. Those back toes are more forward. And then come forward, windmilling the arms into revolved triangle. And take 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Soften that knee. Coming up to a 5-pointed star. We'll step forward with the back foot to Samastitihi. And then we'll step back again with the right foot for side angle pose. It's a longer stance. Moving through warrior 2, we'll hinge forward and fold into side angle pose. Hand on the mat, forearm on the thigh. Reach forward with the palm down and take 3 additional breaths. One. 2. And 3. Reach up, coming to a 5-pointed star. Reposition the feet for revolved triangle towards the front of the mat. Bend that front knee over the ankle as if like in warrior 2, and then find your side angle pose. Just reaching through the fingertips with the palms down, take 3 more breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Reach back on up to the 5-pointed star. Now we're going to reposition our feet like a revolved triangle. And then bend the front knee over the ankle, reach forward, bring the hands to the heart, and then we'll twist in the direction of the leading leg, bringing elbow or tricep to thigh, hands to the heart, and take 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. And come back up to the 5-pointed star. Reposition feet. It's a shorter, wider stance. Front knee over ankle. Reach forward. Hands to the heart. Twisting in the direction of the leading leg for our revolved side angle pose. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Coming up to the 5-pointed star, step forward, Samastitihi, and find your breath. We're moving to the Prasarita Padottanasana variations. That's the wide-legged forward folds. So grab a block, and we'll step out to the back of the mat, facing sideways on the mat, and we'll place the block between our feet. Inhale, 5-pointed star. Exhale, hands to the hips. Inhale, lift the chest, shoulders back. Exhale, forward fold, bringing hands down to the block or between the feet. Or maybe the head on the block, and then take 3 breaths. There's 1. and 2, and 3. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, hands to hips, soften the knees. Inhale, lift the torso up. Inhale, arms out to the 5-pointed star. Exhale, hands to the hips. Leaving the hands on the hips, we'll inhale, and then we'll fold forward, lengthening the back rather than rounding it, and holding it for 3 breaths. There's 1. And 2. And 3. Soften the knees and inhale, lift the torso up. And exhale. Inhale, reach the arms out. Exhale, bring the arms behind, maybe interlacing fingers. Inhale, lift the heart, lower the shoulders, tuck the chin. Exhale, forward fold, bringing the hands up and over. And we'll hold this pose for 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. We'll do one more inhalation here. As you exhale, bring the hands down, and then we'll inhale into a half lift. Exhale, soften knees, hands to hips. Inhale, lift the torso up. And then inhale, reach the arms out. Exhale, forward fold, grabbing the shins, ankles, or the big toes. And 3 breaths here. 1. 2. And 3. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, soften knees, hands to hips. Inhale, lift the torso up. And we'll heel toe the feet together a little. Point that toe toward the front of the mat, and then we'll step forward into Samastiti. Moving to Parshvattanasana, that's pyramid pose. Let's step back with the right foot, point the toes back. Now this is a wide, shorter stance. Those back toes are more forward. You can grab your elbows or your triceps or come to reverse Namaste. Inhale, lengthen the spine. Exhale, hinging at the hips. Reach forward, gaze at the toes. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Bend or soften the knee, and then we'll change position so we're facing the front of the mat. Make sure that stance is wide. Those back toes are forward. Inhale, lengthen the torso, hinging at the hips. Fold forward into pyramid pose for 3 breaths. 1. 2. and 3. Soften or bend the knee, lift the torso, bring the hands to the hips. Step forward, Samastitihi. So we're ready to move to balancing. So adjust your mat, adjust your yoga clothes, relax. So our first balancing pose, there's 2 choices. We can bring the hand to the knee, or we can grab our big toe and extend the leg. A more challenging version, I'm going to go with the easier version. So lift either leg, place the hand on the knee. We'll take 3 breaths. The hand can be on the hip. There's 1, or you can be out to the side for more balance. And 2. And 3. Externally rotate the knee and then look in the opposite direction, 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Bring the knee back to center, extend the leg, and hold it for 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. And set it down and shake it out. And preparing to move to the other side. Ground that other foot. Lift the knee. Remember, you can grab the big toe or taking it easier. 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Externally rotate that knee and then gaze in the other direction for 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Bring the knee forward, straighten the leg, hands on the hips. Reach that leg up. Oh, I think I need a little break. And hold it for 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Set it down and shake it up. All right, our next balancing pose is meant to start stretching the inner thighs. You've got a choice here. We can do a seated figure 4, and letting that knee relax down, or standing erect. We can lift the heel to the middle of the thigh, or maybe up to the hip joint. Let that leg release. Make sure you don't feel anything unpleasant in the knee. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Bring the knee forward and set it down. And the other side, choosing seated figure 4, or bringing that heel up only as far as is comfortable. And sometimes it's a struggle to get into these poses, maybe not going quite so far, and take 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. And bring the knee forward, and we've made it through the balancing poses. And we'll come to the top of the mat, Samastitihi. Moving through a Vinyasa flow, inhale, upward salute. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. You've got lots of choices here. Child, knees, chest, and chin, or chaturanga. Step back to plank and choose one of those as you exhale. And then we'll rise up. Knees, chest, and chin, cobra or up dog. As we inhale, exhale, downward facing dog. And take 3 breaths. There's 1. And 2. And 3. As we bring our feet forward, we'll inhale right into chair pose. And hold it for 3 breaths. Sitting those hips back. There's 1. 2. 3. Inhale up. Exhale, forward fold. Vinyasa flow. Inhale, half lift. Feet come back. As you descend down, exhaling. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, downward facing dog. 3 breaths. That's 1. 2. 3. We're going to step forward with the right foot, lower the back heel, and rise up to warrior 1, and hold it for 3 breaths. 1. 2. 3. Straighten the leg, come to a 3-pointed star, and then we'll face the back of the mat, reposition those feet. Take your time, get them just right. Find your warrior 1, and hold it for 3 breaths. 1. 2. 3. Open up into warrior 2. Reposition the feet. Get the spine vertical, front knee over ankle. Look at your big toe. Hold it for 3 breaths. 1. 2. 3. Come to a 5-pointed star. Reposition the feet. Getting them just right. Find your warrior 2. 1. 2. 3. Windmill the arms down to a high lunge. Step back. Choose your vinyasa flow. Let's take it easy and just flow back to extended child's pose. You don't have to do chaturanga, knees, chest, and chin. Inhale up to hands and knees rather than cobra or up dog. Tucking the toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. And take 3 breaths here. 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to learn an important new pose. It's called the bump up. It's our means to get to our seated position, and from our seated position back to downward facing dog. So I'm going to bring my right foot forward behind my left wrist onto the top of the foot, holding my body up with the strength of my core and shoulders. I'm going to bring the other hand in, the other foot crossing ankles. This is the bump up. And then I'm going to gently lower down, sitting back, hands by the hips, extend the legs into Dandasana. And we'll hold this pose for 3 breaths. Our pose of equanimity, it's like Samastitihi, sitting on the mat. There's 1 breath. 2, and 3. Inhale, and as you exhale, hinging at the hips, slide the hands down only as far as you can go, keeping the back flat or relatively flat, maybe grabbing the toes. Inhale for length, flat back. Exhale, gently relax for 3 breaths in Paschimottanasana A. There's 1. 2. And 3. Inhale. Flat back like the half lift. Exhale, we'll go a little deeper into the pose or stay at the same level, Paschimottanasana B. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. As you inhale, lengthen that, straighten the spine. Exhale, back into Dandasana. We're preparing for reverse plank, or you can do reverse tabletop. Purvottanasana. Couldn't think of the name. All right, slide the hands back. When we lift up, we want our shoulders over our wrist joints. If you're doing reverse tabletop, draw the feet in towards the hips. And then we'll inhale here, lifting the heart. Exhale, lift the hips up. Lift the heart and take 3 breaths. Tuck the chin for ease on the neck, or look straight up if you've got a long neck. There's a strong neck. 2, lift that heart and the hips. And 3, 1 more lift as we inhale. Exhale, lower down with control. Back to Dandasana. And now we're moving, stretching the hip joint and the backs of the legs and the back muscle with our variations on our seated postures. We'll begin with Ardha Baddha Pada
Paschimottanasana. So there's a couple of options here. The easy one is to bring the heel to the groin, roll onto the top of the foot, and then place your upper hamstring on the bottom of the foot. That's what I recommend. If you're very flexible, you can go to a half lotus position, and you can even bind grabbing your big toe. Make sure it doesn't feel unpleasant on the knee, and then reach forward with both hands. If you're holding your big toe, you can only reach with one. Inhale here for length, exhale, forward fold. 3 breaths. One. Two. And 3. Inhale, lengthen that spine. Exhale, release back into Dandasana. And then we'll do it on the other side, drawing the heel to the groin, sitting on the bottom of the foot, or moving to that more advanced half lotus position. And you can bind or not bind. Reach forward for the foot. Inhale for length. Exhale, forward fold. 3 breaths. One. Two. And 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release, and shake it out. So our next pose, probably a good idea to use a block and sit on the block, getting those 2 sits bones on the block. We're moving to Triyan Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana. You gotta admit, Ashtanga Vinyasa Flow has the coolest pose name. So sitting on that block, feeling those 2 sits bones, we're going to bring the heel to the outside of the hip and make sure this isn't unpleasant on the knee. Inhale here for length. Exhale, fold forward and take 3 breaths. One. Two. And 3. Inhale, lengthen that spine, flatten it, and release back to Dandasana. Shake things out, and we'll do it on the other side. So gradually over time, what you're sitting on, you can make it lower and lower. You definitely don't want to feel anything unpleasant in the knee in this posture. All right. Inhale, and then exhale, reach forward. Inhale one more time for a flat back. And 3 relaxing breaths. One. Two. And 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release that leg and shake it out. And now we're going to go through a vinyasa flow. So we've got to move through that bump up. So we're in Dandasana. Lift the feet, cross the ankles, bring the heels to the hips, roll onto the tops of your feet, hands push up to the bump up. Extend one leg back and the other to plank. Choose your vinyasa flow. Let's just go back to extended child's pose rather than chaturanga or knees, chest, and chin. Inhale, up to hands and knees, tucking the toes. Exhale, downward facing dog.
And we're going to come back to our seated posture through the bump up. So you can step forward, 1 foot at a time, or you can hop them both forward. Hold the bump up, lower down, hands by the hips, and find Dandasana. All right, we are ready for Janu Shirshasana series. So we'll bring the sole of the foot to the inner thigh. If the knee doesn't comfortably reach the mat, prop it up with a block. We don't want to feel anything from the knee. Lengthen the spine and reach forward, grabbing the foot or the ankle or the shin. Inhale for length. Exhale, forward fold, folding forward for 3 breaths. One, two, and 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release, back to Dandasana. And the other side. Sole of the foot to the inner thigh. Both sides are different. You might need a different type of support for that knee out to the side. Inhale for length. Exhale, hinge at the hips. Reach the heart forward towards the toes. And relax for 3 breaths. One, two, and 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release, back to Dandasana. Now we're moving to Janu Shirshasana B. We're actually lifting the hips up a little, so making the stretch a little more intense on the back of the leg. We can do this by, remember when we sat on the bottom of our foot? So we can do that, or the actual version is to lift up and place the heel right in the perineum. And if you can comfortably do that, we'll sit up nice and tall and we'll fold forward and take 3 breaths. One, two, and 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release into Dandasana. And then choose the version, the gentle or the more intense version of Janu Shirshasana B. Sitting up nice and tall, reach forward, and take 3 relaxing breaths. One, two, and 3. Inhale for length of the spine. Exhale, release into Dandasana. And now we'll move to our very modified version of Janu Shirshasana C, which is a toe stretch. So let's just do a basic toe stretch. And sitting on the heels, if that's comfortable. And while we're here, we can practice our Gomukhasana arms, reaching the arms up, aligning the forearm with the spine with one arm, reaching back, connecting the hands with the strap or with the fingertips. We'll take 2 breaths here.
2. And during our third breath, we'll release the arms and exhale into the other side and take 2 more breaths. 1. And 2. Release the arms, come to hands and knees, point those toes, and let's just whack the tops of our feet and wake them up. And we'll go through a vinyasa flow. Let's just reach back to plank and then flow back into child's pose. And we'll take an extra breath in child's pose. Stretch that back out. Let it relax. And then coming up to hands and knees, tuck the toes, drop the belly, and we'll exhale into downward facing dog. And we'll need to come back to Dandasana through the bump up. So bring the feet forward behind the wrists. Lower the hips, pop into Dandasana. And I'm going to take a moment here to adjust my mat. It seems to have migrated around. We're moving to the Marachasana poses. So we're going to draw one heel towards the hip, bring the torso and the thigh together, lengthen the spine, and we'll reach the opposite arm behind us, and then the same side arm up. And then reach forward, going for the inside of your foot. And you can hold the pose, bringing both hands to the foot, or you can bind. In either case, we'll relax into the pose and take 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. Inhale, lengthen, flatten that spine, release to Dandasana. And other side, drawing the heel to the hip. Nice tall spine against your thigh. Opposite arm behind, same side arm up, reach forward for going for the foot. You can grab your ankle and then reach the other foot forward, the other hand, or you can bind into the pose and we'll hold it for 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release. All right, so our next pose can be pretty challenging. So we're starting with that leg that we drew the heel, but before we do that, we're going to bring the heel to the groin, and we're going to bring the bottom of the sit on the top of the bottom of the foot like we did before. Or if you want a lot more, bring it up into half lotus and then draw the heel to the hip. Same thing, same side arm up, hinge forward, and then just place your hands on the ground in front of you or bind. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. And then we'll release. And when you're doing these poses, make sure nothing intenses
no stretches are too intense or painful. Modify them. So we'll do the other side, placing that foot up by the hip in whatever position makes sense to you. And reach forward with the opposite arm, or back with the opposite arm. Reach forward with the same side arm. Find your position and take 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Inhale for length. Exhale, release into Dandasana. And sitting up nice and tall. Now we're moving to Marachasana C, which is a twisting pose. So draw the heel in with the leg we started. This time we're going to reach back with the same side arm. And the opposite arm reaches up, and then place the tricep or the elbow on that thigh. Lengthen the spine. Try to get it nice and straight up. And then maybe you can bring that elbow to the outside. Keep those toes and the extended leg up. Maybe you can get your shoulder there. And now lengthen the spine. Hold it for 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. So remember, we're going for a nice tall straight spine rather than a twist where we have to hunch up into a little ball. Extend the leg back into Dandasana, and we'll do the other side. Same side or arm behind us. Opposite arm reaches up. Lengthen the spine upwards and find your comfortable twist. Lengthen the spine upwards. Hold it for 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. And we'll release out of the pose back to Dandasana. And we're going to very carefully move through our Vinyasa Flow. So cross the ankles, heels to hips, roll forward, bump up, extend the legs back to plank, and flow back into child's pose. And we'll take an additional breath here, relaxing, releasing the back muscles. And then coming up to hands and knees, exhale into downward facing dog. And then we'll come forward through the bump up back to the seated posture, Dandasana. And let's scoop the hips forward and lift into boat pose. Lengthen that back, lift the heart up, draw the shoulders down. 3 breaths. 1. 2. 3. Cross ankles, heels to hips, roll onto the top of your feet, bump up. We're working on that bump up. Way up, and then lower down like a shock absorber, slowly coming down, back into the boat. 3 breaths. 1. Of course, you can straighten the legs if you like. 2.
2, but I think I won't. And 3. Cross ankles, roll forward, bump up, get those hips way up, and come down, back into the boat. Now the problem with straightening the legs is you don't want to lean back. You want to keep the heart lifted and close to the knees. There's 1 breath. So don't do it if you lean way back. There's 2. You've got to keep the knees and the chest close together. And there's 3. And we'll cross ankles. This time we'll go through a vinyasa, bump up, step back to plank, and we're doing it the easy way. We're not doing chaturanga, we're doing child's pose. Take an extra breath here. Coming up to hands and knees, tuck toes, downward facing dog. And after the exhalation, bring the feet forward to the bump up, back to Dandasana. And now we're ready for our hip opening. Let's come to a comfortable cross-legged seated position, Sukhasana. So our ankles are crossed, our knees are floating up. So this looks like an easy pose. Well, let's reach down under our calves. Try to get your elbows and calves together, hinging at the hips, and then see if you can lift up and then bring your fingers to your chin. And take 3 breaths in Garbha Pindasana. There's 1. 2. And 3. Lower the feet, bring the soles of the feet together, draw the heels to the groin, and interlace fingers around the toes. We'll tilt that pelvis forward, lengthen the spine upwards, let the knees relax down. You can do a little work, but then relax them all. Work on a tall spine and a deep breath. 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Bring the knees together, extend the feet for Upavishta Konasana. So we're keeping our toes straight up. Inhale for length, exhale, slide the hands down, keeping the back flat, and grab your big toes if you can go that far, or grab your ankles or shins. Inhale here for length, exhale, fold forward, trying to keep the back pretty flat, 3 breaths. And then inhale. Oh, I forgot to count. Sorry about that. Bring that heart forward, hands by the hips, bring the legs together, and then draw heels back to the hips. All right, well, here's our fun pose. So we're going to come to hands and knees. We're going to work on the crow pose. So I'm going to teach a version that maybe you normally don't, and it's the feet position. So we're coming up and we're bringing our heels together and our toes are apart at a 45-degree angle. Walk the hands forward and then try to get your knees up onto your triceps,
close to the armpits. And then we'll just roll forward and just hold this pose. Maybe lift one foot at a time, or if you're comfortable, you can lift both into crow pose. And then we'll take 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Lower down into Malasana, squat. Bring the hands behind the hips and back to Dandasana. And we'll draw the heels towards the hips. And using our hands and forearms, gently come down to our back. We're taking a little break here. Extend the legs into active Shavasana, backs of the knees, pressing into the mat, toes straight up. Reach up, interlace fingers, roll the palms open. Bring the hands overhead for a full body stretch. And really lengthen that spine, uncompress that lower back. Enjoy this pose. And all good things come to an end. As we exhale, release. Bring the hands by the hips as if in Shavasana. Coming back to active Shavasana. Toes are straight up, backs of the knees, gently pressing into the mat. Draw the right knee to the right shoulder. Caress your hamstring muscle. Wing the leg out to the side. We'll just take a breath here in our upside down high lunge. And then we're going to stretch that leg, straightening it, reaching that heel up. You can interlace fingers between your hamstring or maybe up to the calf muscle. Or maybe you can even grab your big toe, the other hand comes down to the thigh. And we'll stretch our hamstring on the back of our leg here. Take a couple of breaths. There's 1. And 2. Making it a little more intense. Inhale, lift the torso towards nose, towards the shin, and take 2 more breaths. 1. And 2. And then release the torso down to the mat. Bring the both hands to your belly. Inhale here, reach up with that heel. Exhale, engage the core, lower the heel and the leg, press the lower back into the mat. And then relax. Coming back to active Shavasana, we'll draw the left knee towards the shoulder, caress the hamstring, wing that leg out to the side. Take a breath here. Sole of the foot facing the ceiling. And then we'll inhale that leg straight up, reaching with the heel, holding the hamstring or the calf or the big toe. And take 2 breaths here. Relax your lower jaw. It doesn't need to be doing any work. There's 1 breath. And 2. Inhale, bring the nose towards the shin. And take 2 additional breaths. And then inhale, release the leg, reach with the heel, hands to the belly. Exhale, lower that leg down as you engage the core, pressing the lower back into the spine. Relax as if in Shavasana. And then we'll use our hands and forearms to come up to a seated posture, back to Dandasana.
And now we're going to draw our heels to our hips. We're going to do our forward fold, but as a balancing pose. Lengthen the spine. Come into boat and grab your shins above the ankles or the big toes. Lengthen the back, and then we'll try to straighten the legs. It's okay if they're partially straightened. What we want is our heart close to our knees. So go for a flat back. You can bend the knees a little. And let's take a couple of breaths here. Imagine we're in Paschimottanasana. And then back into the boat and extend the legs. Oh, we'll cross ankles and we'll roll forward and go through our Vinyasa Flow. Bump up, step back. You can go to Chaturanga or Child. And then rising up, coming up to hands and knees or up dog. Remember, there's choices for the Vinyasa Flow. We'll all exhale into downward facing dog. And we'll come back to our seated posture through the bump up into Dandasana. And we're getting ready for our finishing postures. So adjust things. We're going to be moving toward bridge and shoulder stand. We'll start with bridge pose. So we'll roll back, tickle our heels with our fingers, feet, knees are hip distance apart. Tilt the pelvis forward, make a tunnel under your lower back. Draw the shoulders down and lift the heart, make a tunnel between the shoulder blades, lifting the spine just a little. Relax your chin and your lower jaw. We're ready for bridge pose. Inhale, exhale, lift hips, lift heart. And maybe bringing the hands together, interlacing fingers, tucking the shoulders. Lift not only the hips, but the heart as you press the shoulders gently into the mat. Relax the lower jaw. Take 3 breaths. There's 1. And 2. And 3. Inhale, lift hips and heart. Exhale, lower down. And we'll prepare to, let's just bring our knees over our hips and circle them around or rock side to side as we prepare for our second version of bridge pose. So you can do the exact same version or a different version, drawing the heels closer to the hips. Grab the ankles or wrap your fingers around your shins. Heels are close to the hips. This is Chatushpadasana, the 4-footed pose. So in either version of bridge, inhale and then exhale, lifting the hips, lifting the heart, pressing the shoulders into the mat. And making sure your neck and chin are very relaxed. Inhale, lift the hips, lift the heart. Get up on those shoulders. This is a preparation for shoulder stand. Take 3 breaths. There's 1. And 2. And 3. Inhale, lifting hips and heart. Exhale, lower the body down as a single unit. And then we'll press ourselves gently up to Dandasana. Sitting up nice and tall, we're going to do a very gentle Paschimottanasana. Inhale. As we exhale, just slide the hands down to the shins and inhale as if in the half lift.
Exhale, slide the hands down a little further, really keeping that back flat. Inhale, think of the half lift. And then we'll inhale, slide the hands to our final position. It doesn't have to be that far. Keep that back flat. Inhale, exhale into your forward fold for 3 breaths. One, two, and 3. Inhale for a nice long spine. Exhale, Dandasana. We'll go through a very gentle Vinyasa flow, scooting the hips forward, crossing ankles, drawing heels to the hips. Bump up. Step back to plank and flow into child's pose. The arms extended. As you exhale, take an extra breath here. Inhale up to hands and knees, tucking toes. Exhale, downward facing dog. And then we'll bring the feet forward to the bump up. Lower down, find Dandasana, the seated staff pose. And then we'll scoot the hips forward, lower down into active Shavasana. We're taking a little break here. We're preparing for shoulder stand. And just breathe here in our active Shavasana. So you can come up to shoulder stand and you can stay there for the whole time. Or you can go through the sequence shoulder stand, plow, and then Karnapadasana, ears, knees by the ears. Or you can do the sequence shoulder stand, eagle wrap legs on one side, bringing the knee towards the forehead, extending back to shoulder stand, eagle wrap legs on the other side. So I'll be cueing shoulder stand, plow, and knees to ears, but I'll also let you choose. So remember, you can stay in shoulder stand the whole time and come down at any time back to active Shavasana. All right, let's draw the heels up, bring the legs up and over, lift up into your shoulder stand, getting up on the shoulders, trying to get the hips between shoulders and ankles. And let's hold it for 3 breaths. Don't turn your head to the side during the sequence. There's 1. 2. And 3. So you can do eagle wrap legs on one leg, bringing the knee to the forehead, or move into plow pose for 3 breaths. 1. 2. 3. If you're in eagle wrap legs, extend up to shoulder stand and then do eagle wrap legs on the other side. If you're in plow and you want to try ears or knees by the ears, do that. 3 breaths. 1. 2. And 3. And then gracefully come back down with control. Bring the feet to the mat, extend them out into active Shavasana. And then coming up to a cross-legged seated position, we'll move to fish pose. So from Sukhasana is one option. The more advanced option would be to go into Padmasana, lotus pose. Probably not something you should do unless you're real comfortable. And then we're going to bring our hands back and lift our heart up into a heart opener. Maybe coming down to our forearms. And even, you could even put a block between the shoulder blades and let the head roll back into fish pose. 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. Lift the torso up and stretch the legs out into Dandasana. We're going to move to Uttana Padasana. Just to relax, come down onto your back, extend the legs out at 45 degrees and reach the arms out at 45 degrees for 3 breaths. There's 1. 2. And 3. And lower the feet down. We'll come up to we'll draw the heels in, getting ready for our bump up. And then we'll gently push into the bump up, slide the legs back to plank, flow back to child's pose. And take a breath with the hands extended. That's 1, 1 more. And 2. Coming up to hands and knees, we're going to work on our shoulder strength for headstand, forearm headstand prep. We actually don't do a forearm headstand in this practice. If you want to, you can use a wall and do so. So bring the forearms down to the mat and bring the hands together, making a triangle. And then walk the feet forward into dolphin pose. So our head is floating above the mat. Walk the feet in even closer. And now with our strength of our shoulders, lift the chin over the hands. And then bring the chin back to the chest, gazing at your knees. Inhale. Lift the chin over the hands. Exhale. Chin to chest. Inhale. Lifting up, pressing down with the forearms. Pull the elbows toward each other energetically. Squeezing the elbows together as you move through this posture. So we're pressing on the forearms. We're energetically drawing the elbows toward each other. And then come down to the knees and sit back into child's pose with the hands by the feet, palms up. And then we'll come forward back to our dolphin pose with hands together, elbows apart. Walk those feet in as far as you can. Keeping the head off the mat, we'll lift one leg up, point the toes. As if we were reaching it back to a wall. Lower it down, maybe closer to your head. Lift the other leg up. Reach. And then lower it down, maybe even closer. First leg up. Press with those forearms. Draw the elbows together. Lower down. One more time with the other leg. And lower it down. Come down to child's pose with hands by the feet, palms up. Take 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll come up to a cross-legged seated posture, preparing for Yoga Mudra. So we can do this from Sukhasana, half lotus, or full lotus. You can even do it in Vajrasana or Sisa if you prefer. Reach back, grab your elbows or grab your triceps. Lift the heart, hinging at the hips. With a flat back, come forward and hold it for 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Lifting the torso, extend the arms over the hands over the knees, thumb and pointer finger together for our seated meditation. Relax the shoulders, 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. And for our final pose, we'll bring our hands near our hips and lift ourselves up, floating in the air for 3 breaths. 1, 2, and 3. And stretch those legs out. Find your Shavasana. Getting your hips, shoulders, and back of the head just right. Take a deep breath. Fill those lungs completely. Get my timer ready. Empty those lungs. I'll be back to get you in 2 minutes. Enjoy the peace and serenity of Shavasana. awakening from Shavasana. Bring your attention back to your breath, lengthening and deepening the breath. Bring small awakening movements to fingers and toes. And if you like, stretch the arms overhead, reaching from tips of the fingers to tips of the toes. And let it all go, relaxing as you exhale. And when you're ready, draw the knees to your chest, perhaps giving yourself a hug. And then rolling over onto the right side, cradling your head with your right arm. Pausing here for a moment for a very long, slow exhalation. When you're ready, gently press yourself back up to a comfortable seated posture, using your yoga gear to find that sense of steadiness and that sense of ease. We'll end the practice by bringing the palms of our hands together, thumbs to the heart in Anjali Mudra. The light within me salutes the light within each of you, the light that connects us all together. Namaste. Well, thank you very much for coming to this very modified version of Ashtanga Vinyasa Flow. It's meant as an introductory class so that you might consider taking this type of practice if that's something you think you might enjoy. I just like staying with the modified, much more accessible version. I hope you have a wonderful day.